Hello and welcome. Welcome, everybody. As you are joining today, I want to welcome you to our fourth and final session of the Student Life Leadership Development Series with Dr. Ron Lewis from Lewis Way Leadership Development. Dr. Ron, he has been leading our way this entire semester, well, for the past couple months anyway, in 4 specific sessions about leadership development. If you've missed any of those sessions and you'd like to go back and review them for your own purposes, or to participate in our Student Life Leadership Development Certification, you can go and check out the news post at link.ivytech.edu/Fort Wayne Leads. Most of you have been with us through this whole journey, so I do not need to reintroduce Dr. Ron Lewis, but he is visiting us today. He's one of our favorite people, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. Dr. Ron.
All righty. Thank you so much, Carrie. We're back, family. Hello. Let me move my camera back here a little bit. All righty. Anyway, let's just get started. I know time is of the essence. I know your time is valuable. I know your time is important, and I don't want to waste it. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right. Perfect. Everyone can see that. We're good. Perfect. Okay. So again, my name is Ron Lewis. I'll bypass anything about me. But here's the big idea. Here's what we've been talking about for the last 4 sessions. And this comes from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And since I have seen kind of this graphic, I'll put it in everything that I've presented on thus far. But if you want to make minor changes in life, you work on your behavior. But if you want to make them quantum leaps, you work on your paradigm. Your paradigm is your mental map. And for the last 4 sessions, or 3 sessions, I should say, that's what I've been, hopefully have been trying to do, pluck away at that mental map, because that's truly where the improvement, that's where we see the significant gains in our life, is when we pluck and when we make changes to our mental map, our way of thinking, and the topics that we have discussed. Hopefully that has led to some of that. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to review. We're going to connect the dots. I love connecting the dots because I want you to see how everything we discuss affects everything else. Again, as I stated in our last session, so often when we talk about things like this, we want to isolate topics. We want to isolate issues. Not really. When we talk about one thing, we're addressing another. So we're going to talk about that. And then we want to talk about how to be a team player. I forgot the word team, not player, but how to be a good team player. All righty, let's keep it moving. All right, in our first session, we looked at the rules of leadership. And again, I'm just reiterating. So like Carrie said, if you missed that session, go back. It was a good session, great feedback, great commentary there. But there are 3 rules to leadership. Number 1, leadership is ownership. You gotta own it first. No one can own your experience as much as you can own your experience. Number 2, you can't give what you don't have. And this is important, because so often we want to move people with titles. We want to move people with force. And I'll show you that, when you move people with force, you'll get the least amount of effort. And last but not least, we have to respect what is in leadership. That means simply we have to meet people where they are. And that is one of the most challenging things I think we can all agree on. It is challenging to meet people where they are, especially when we think they need to be somewhere else. But we have to meet them where they are so we can help them grow and go where they need to be. Okay. So that was in our first session. Let's keep it moving. Now, in our second session, we looked at emotional intelligence. And I just want to give you the 4 areas of emotional intelligence that we discussed. We discussed self-awareness. That is so important. When we talk about diversity, the first area that we start in diversity is self-awareness. When I talk about leadership, I truly believe the first area of leadership that we talk about, self-awareness, how we lead ourselves, how and what we present to others has a major effect on how we lead others. Next, we talk about self-management. How do you control yourself? Are you proactive? Are you reactive? Next is social awareness, the empathy that we provide to others and being a good team player. And then relationship management. When we talk about relationship management, that's everything else, the developing of others, the communication, the teamwork, the leadership. But we start with ourselves first. All right. So let's connect some dots here. When we talk about leadership, we also talk about communication. Okay. When we talk about communication, we talk about teamwork. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to be a team player, how to be a good teammate. When we talk about teamwork, we also talk about diversity. The differences not only in what we can see with our eyes, but differences in position, expectation, tenure, so on and so on. What about emotional intelligence? We just talked about that. But how do we interact with people that are different than us? Again, not just from the eye test, but what about people with different beliefs, different ideas, different values? When we talk about emotional intelligence, we also talk about employee engagement. How we interact with others plays a major role on the performance of others. And last but not least, when we talk about employee engagement, we're also talking about customer service. If we don't have a good feeling about what we're doing at work or in whatever we're doing, it's going to spill over into the experience of other people. All right. So again, when we talk about leadership, we're talking about employee engagement. Talk about employee engagement. We talk about diversity. You talk about diversity. You're talking about customer service. Everything affects everything. So what does that mean? That means when we make an improvement in one area, we improve another area. When we don't make an improvement in one area, another area can also be affected. We also talked about in our leadership session, and I just think it's something to consider, is this 5 levels of leadership. The first level of leadership is people follow you because they have to. They have like, you have force, you use your force, so you use your title. Again, as I stated, if you choose to lead this way, communicate this way, interact this way, if you choose to do that, then you'll get the least amount of effort. The 5th level of this level, 5 levels of leadership, is the pinnacle, and it's based on what you represent. And this is where us as being a good team player comes into play. It's based on what you represent. And what you represent has a lot to do with how people communicate or choose not to communicate with you. And speaking of communication, 7% of our communication, we talked about this last week, communicating with impact, words. 38% of our communication is tone. 55% of our communication is body language. So that means communication has more to do with what you display than what you say. Actions speak louder than words, and it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So that means that the 55 and the 38, that's roughly 93% of our communication is wrapped up in saying nothing, which says everything. Does that make sense? Again, this plays a major role in how well we are as teammates, as communicators, potential leaders, okay? And when we talk about leadership, we're not talking position, we're talking about influence. And the only way to gain influence is to gain this missing key, and we're going to talk about that. And last but not least, the rules of communication. Number 1, we're always communicating. Think of your body language, always communicating. Your facial expressions, okay? Your tone, always communicate. Number 2, relationships influence communication, 100%. Listen, folks, when we are in our respective workplace or church or community group, when we like to be around certain people, we tend to communicate better with them. And I've always stated this, that if you want to improve your communication tomorrow, improve your relationships. When we like certain people, we tend to communicate better with them. And also consider this, there's so many books written about the idea of having crucial conversations or things like that. But ask yourself, if you have a good rapport with someone, you can have some hard conversations with them. It becomes a little easier. So to think that we don't need relationships in the workplace is doing a disservice to the workplace, because you do it. And in this in this today's section of how to be a good team player, we're going to talk about that. Okay. And then last but not least, listening is the lost art of communication. We spend a lot of time talking about how well to speak, but we don't necessarily put a lot of emphasis on how to be a good listener. All right. And if you remember the last time, if you were here, we discussed it takes two things to be a good listener. Number one, it takes patience. And sometimes we say we don't have the patience. And number two, it takes time. You got to be willing to put in the time. Okay. All right. So that's a recap of the last 3 sessions. Any comments? Anything to add? Anything to delete? All right. Good deal. Now let's move into what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about how do we put all this together within ourselves. Like, so how do we be a team player? What does that mean? So, as you know, I like to bring in activity. So if you can see this, I hope you can see this activity. But what I would like for you to do is I would like for you to, I'll give you about 2 minutes. So what attitudes, what skills, and what would you need to know to be a team player? So this is what I call the ask model. What attitude, what skills, and what would you need to know to be a good team player? You're going to do this on your own, and then we're going to come back after roughly a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Okay? So time is yours. I'm going to get the music going because you know I always play the music. The music is free. So go ahead and get started, and I will come back in roughly 2 minutes. All right, my peeps, let's see what you got. What attitudes does it take to be a team player? I would love to get your insight. Throw it in the chat. I would love to hear your voice too. What you got? Talk to me.
So you want me all 3 or just one?
Let's start with attitudes.
Okay. I think to be a good team player, you need to have a selfless attitude. Okay. One that's willing to not put your own priorities ahead of what the team is trying to accomplish, and a willingness to learn.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Some people said, let me just read, they got a good attitude, positive, welcoming, a can-do attitude. Thank you. Good, good, good. Okay. Anything else to add?
I'll put an engaged attitude.
An engaged attitude? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Good, 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 good. What skills? Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I would say open-mindedness.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes, an open-minded attitude. Yes. Good. Good. What are some skills that we need? What would you say? What skills do we need?
I would say flexible. I'd say someone who's willing to learn and someone who's flexible.
Okay. Someone that's flexible, someone that's willing to learn. Good, good. And I would agree that, you know, being willing to learn can be something you can learn to do, as well as it can be a type of attitude you can have. Okay. So I think they're dual. See, someone that can be accountable, someone that is a problem solver. I have someone that's willing to communicate, teamwork. Okay, good, good. Okay. Now there are no right or wrong answers here. We're just priming the brain here as we talk about this idea of teamwork. Resourcefulness, yes, communicator, networker. And I will tell you that idea of resourcefulness, being able to see a problem and develop ways to solve that problem, I think is so critical for all team members. Instead of just saying, I can't do it and quit, say, nope, I can't do it, but how do I make it work? How can I make something happen that's going to move our team in a positive direction? It's a great attribute as a team player. And not everyone, as you probably know, come in or choose to exhibit that. As soon as they hit the roadblock, they quit. All right. So good. What should we know? To be a good team player, what should we know? What do you think?
I think it's important to know the goal of the team, the direction that the team should be going in, or the vision of, because if you don't have a destination, you end up anywhere.
Okay, good, good. Be aware of diverse personalities of your members, good strengths and weaknesses of individuals. Thank you, Danielle. Collaboration. Let me piggyback off of that comment of knowing your strengths and weaknesses. Not only should we have at least an idea of our team members' strengths and weaknesses, we really should know our strengths and weaknesses. And by knowing our strengths and weaknesses, it will make us a better teammate. Someone help me out. Why? Why would I say that? And I truly believe this. Knowing what you're good at and not good at makes you a better teammate versus the person who has no idea. Why would I say that?
Maybe because you know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can ask for help if you need to.
Yes. So if you know your strengths and weaknesses, number one, you know where to ask for help at. That makes sense. I mean, that's simple. That's not brain surgery, right? To be productive. But what about this one? What about when you know your strengths and weaknesses, you know how to offer help? You know how to offer help. That is just as important. How many of you ever had a teammate that offered you help, but they really didn't help you? They just made it worse than what it was. Like, I could have been doing this by myself, because they don't get me wrong. The idea of help is beautiful. But if you don't know really how to help me, then you're just making it worse for me, right? So if you know your strengths and weaknesses, you're better off saying, I can't help you, but I think I have someone that can. So I think people shy away from their strengths and weaknesses, one, because they don't want to be boastful, which I don't think is boastful by saying, I can help you with that. I'm good at that. Let me help you with that. I don't think that's boastful at all. But we'd rather highlight our weaknesses. To me, highlighting our weaknesses to the point where people don't even want to ask us for help does not make us a good teammate at all. Okay. And then I think last but not least, if others know your strengths and weaknesses, they know how to ask you for help. Okay. You can offer help, but people know where to go for help. And to me, that's being a really good teammate, when you are resourceful to your teammates. All right. So let me give you, and I think this is important. Let me move my chat here. All right. I want to give you the 3 things that every employee wants. And the reason why this is important, because I truly believe this. And I was just speaking at a group 2 weeks ago, and I mentioned this. Everybody wants these 3 things. Every employee. I don't care if it's a for-profit, not-for-profit. And there's also been a debate about, millennials, Gen Zers, baby boomers, Gen Xers, and we've built all these stereotypes surrounding these generational cohorts. I know every employee wants these 3 things. We want them differently, but we all want them. Without these 3 things, we try to find other employment or other groups to be a part of. Because when we don't have these 3 important elements, we don't feel connected. We don't feel like we matter. We don't feel like the work matters. So let me give them to you. Number 1. Well, they're not in any order really, but number 1, appreciation. You may be a millennial, you may be a baby boomer, you may be a Gen Xer, but I promise you, everybody wants to be appreciated within their group, especially in the workplace. Why? You work 60 hours a week. I mean, should you work 60 hours a week? I don't know. If the work calls for it, sure. But you know what? A thank you never hurt anyone. But yet still, people will put more energy in, the more energy and effort they give to their work, and they feel unappreciated. It doesn't make them want to show up on Monday. Appreciation is important, folks. I will even go a step further. You got to do a good job of appreciating yourself before you expect others to do it for you. But when we receive that appreciation from our colleagues and our coworkers, and I'm not talking any supervisor, I'm just talking our colleagues, our coworkers, when we recognize something within our team members, we should appreciate that. Number 2, value. You may say, well, what's the difference between appreciation and value? Well, I mean, really they can bleed and then blend in together and bleed into each other. But I will say it's something that's empowering when you feel like you are a valued member of your organization or of your team. And when we don't feel valued, we go to Indeed.com. Okay, we go to Indeed. So, or we just try to find something different, because no one wants to feel like they're working 60, 50, sometimes 70 hours in a week, taking up their weekends, coming in early, staying late, and they don't feel valued. Like nobody wants to do that. And again, if we want to be a valuable team member, a valuable team player to our colleagues, I promise you that value goes a long way. Absolutely important. And last but not least, recognition. I'm not saying we all want ice cream, cakes, and balloons here, folks, but I will say recognition of my effort is always a compliment, never a criticism. Okay. And it's so important that we recognize this. Again, I say we want all these 3 things, which is so true, but we have to recognize them within ourselves. I will say for all of the consulting and traveling that I've done, especially pre-pandemic, I noticed people were always waiting for other people to give them these 3 things first. And I feel like that is somewhat the wrong way to approach this. In a sense that, don't get me wrong, when we add this and when we provide this to our colleagues, this is a great thing. But there's no guarantee they're going to provide it to us. There's no guarantee. So my recommendation is you have to find value in your work. You have to find appreciation in what you're doing. You have to find ways to recognize your energy and effort. Because if you don't, it's like waiting for someone to turn on the light when it's dark. What if they never show up? Do you just stay in the dark? Not at all. You still got to turn on the light. So I still believe it's up to us to find the value, appreciation, and recognition in ourselves. But if we know this to be the case, then we should at least try to find ways to provide this to our team members who maybe can't do this for themselves for whatever reason. Okay. So how do we define a team player? Okay. It's a person who plays or works well as a member of a team. Well, what's the definition of a team? I'm glad you asked. It is a group of people who are mutually dependent on one another to achieve a common goal. So when we talk about a team player, we're talking about someone who plays nice, knowing that they are going to be dependent on someone else so they both can achieve this common goal, or more than 2 people. Now, here's the question. I highlighted the word mutually dependent. Why is it? I believe this is the most important word that makes a team, mutually dependent. Why is that important? Why do you think that would be important to consider? What do you think?
Because a team is more than one person, and most often nobody can do things in a vacuum or by themselves.
Okay.
Or unless it wouldn't be called a team, it'd be an independent assignment or project, but a team requires the collaboration.
Okay. Yes. Yes. A team definitely requires collaboration, 100%. Let's take it a step further. Appreciate it, Tracy. Great insight. Let's build off Tracy's response.
I would say also it's not just your own individual departments or teams.
Mhm.
It's what I'm doing impacts what Tracy's doing in her area. So
Mhm.
it's a bigger team than just your department.
Yes, thank you. And I think sometimes in all organizations they get siloed, so we think it's about our little part instead of the bigger or the global part of it. But yes. And I'm gonna piggyback and build on those answers by saying, despite what we think about certain areas, you still need them. Right? There are certain areas in our organization that sometimes they could just be a little rough, right? But we still need them. We still need them. In a team, in what is inherently built in a team is dependence on other people. So easiest example is just sports. I mean, despite I'll use basketball as my sport of choice, but though you have individual skills, each person plays a role to help our individual skills flourish. And as it was already stated, we can't do it all. But what we bring to the table can help us accomplish a lot. So we have to understand, despite what happens in our respective teams or our respective workplace, we still need the person that we may not see eye to eye with. And that can be challenging. That can be really challenging, but we still need them. Okay. So here's what I would like to do. Now we're talking about being a team player. So what I want you to do is come up with at least 5 team killers. I'm gonna give you roughly about a minute and a half, and I would love for you to just jot down some team killers as you have experienced, things that erode the idea and the spirit of teamwork. Okay, so I'm gonna give you about a minute and a half to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to keep going. Go. All right, my peeps. Let's talk about this. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this, 2 reasons. Number one, it's hard to talk about how to be a good teammate and not bring up the things that will make us a bad teammate. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we're all guilty of these. Whatever we talk about today, we've been guilty of them at some point in our career. And it doesn't make us a bad person, but at least we got to have enough self-awareness to say, yep, I've done that before. And the reason why, to me, this is important is because if we can at least acknowledge and accept, yeah, I've been a part of something like this, then at least we can have enough self-awareness to catch ourselves when we're doing it. Okay, because we're human. So I don't expect any of us to be perfect. I just expect us to be mindful. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about some team killers. Let's throw some out there. What'd you come up with? Oh, we got some chats going. We got some chats. Let's see. Let me read them up. Not communicating, uneven workload, confusion, selfish attitude, disinterested in problem solving. Yes, laziness, closed-minded, unwilling to listen. What else we got?
I would say environment, like not having an inclusive environment, everybody being able to have a say so, or being able to be heard as well.
Folks, I'll tell you something. You know, when I ask people what's the most important characteristic of a high performing team, I've had a lot of people say open and closed communication. Well, open communication, I apologize. Open communication, goals, things like that. And don't get me wrong, those are important. Like we got to have our goals but I'm going to tell you, going back to what Ricky said, that when the environment is not positive, even if we know the goal, we won't try to achieve it. Even if we know who to talk to, we may not communicate with them. When you have a poor environment, everything becomes challenging. Everything becomes challenging. Why? Because in a poor environment, we have to look over our shoulder to do the smallest things. in the negative environment, you have to watch every little thing that you say. It makes it, the work becomes harder because the environment is more challenging. The work is the work. The challenging part is to work with certain people. So then we have to ask ourselves, the question is, are we part of some of these team practices that erodes the team? So yes, I totally agree. The environment is so important. People gloss over it. They say, well, they don't know how to do the work. I don't know. They've been there for 5 years. Maybe they don't. Then that's a problem. But I will tell you, the most challenging thing is to work within the environment. Okay. Now, I'm gonna add to your list of what you've either wrote down. These are not the law, by the way. These are just things that I think are just that I've seen to be important. So I'm gonna just throw them out there. Here we go. I just started not telling the truth. Number one, not speaking clearly. And when I say speaking clearly, I don't mean having mumble mouth. Okay, that's not what I mean. What I mean is not speaking in a way that other people understand. Okay. And maybe you use jargon, maybe you use language or terminology that someone does not understand. Number three, not saying please or thank you. I know it's basic and I know it is generic, but it still counts. It still matters. Number four, no one mentioned this. I know you probably wrote this one down. Gossip, gossip, gossip. I cannot tell you how many companies have called me in for number four. I know we're adults, right? We've all been through high school, some college. We have years of experience. We know number four kills the team. We know this. And sometimes we just can't help it. Now, I believe it is so important that we have communication with our team members. And I get it. Some team members are just challenging across the board. I totally understand. And sometimes we all get frustrated. I totally understand. So when I suggest, hey, I think you should talk to your team member, someone's going to say, I don't have the time for that. I don't have the time. And I'm going to challenge that person to say, if you have the time to talk about your team member, you have the time to talk to your team member. Same amount of time. The communication is just directed in a different way. Now, to talk to our team member in a way that makes us uncomfortable takes more courage. And that is challenging, to build up the courage to express yourself in a way that hopefully will get through to your teammate, or to just express yourself. But that number four will kill a team. It will make a 9 to 5 feel like a 9 to 10. It will make a 40-hour work week feel like a 60-hour work week. Okay. Number 5, complaining, constant complaining. Now, if you like the person, we'll call it venting. If you don't like the person, we call it complaining, whatever you want to call it. But doing that on a consistent basis, it's a team killer. Number 6, making it personal. And obviously, sometimes people do make it personal, and sometimes it is personal. I think number 6, we have to consider this. How do we distinguish what's what? But if you have good relationships, it matters. Number 7, losing your temper. Here's the thing I want you to keep in mind, folks. Once you lose your temper, I know you may apologize, but there's no going back. You did it. Again, 93% of communication is not what you say. 93% of communication has nothing to do with what you say, right? It's your actions. It's your tone. So it's like the internet. Once you put it out there, it's always there forever, at least in someone's mind. How many of us on this call today have someone that has done something to them and they've apologized, and it doesn't matter? They did it. We all do. Don't lose your temper. You're much better to walk away and save face than lose your temper. And someone says, yep, I know what type of person you are because you did this, this, and this. And now you have to backtrack in. I apologize. I'm sorry. So on and so on. Number 8, if we're in a leadership role, taking sides, That will be challenging. And last but not least, number 9, a lack of awareness, which is the first element of emotional intelligence. See, we have to have enough awareness to say, this is not my time to speak. You know, as I talked about this in our last session, but someone told me, never miss a good opportunity to shut up. And I promise you, it never hurts. You don't always have to say what's on your mind. Not all the time. Okay. So those are some team killers. Now, what does every employee need? And I'm going through this, I want you to understand, because if once I give you, again, we talked about value, appreciation, recognition. So here's what every employee needs. Okay, this is the McCullum theory. And it says every employee needs to achieve. We need power to control others, quote unquote, to get things done. We need affiliation. Now, that idea of affiliation, the need for relationships, which is one of the few things that people kind of just toss away when we talk about, you know, workplace dynamics, group dynamics. We kind of throw away this idea of the need for affiliation. But let me further this one step further. This is what we call the self-determination theory. The need for competence, autonomy, almost looks like the last one, and relatedness, the need for relationships. Good people, we need relationships in our workplace. That is what made COVID so painful. More than anything, we couldn't be around anybody. We couldn't talk to anybody. We couldn't communicate. Okay. So what am I suggesting? I'm suggesting every single day we work on our relationships. If we want to be a good team player to our organization, to our students, to our colleagues, whoever, constantly working on our relationships, crucial. What are some ways to do that? Well, here's some ways. Great team player, great actions. Obviously, these are basic to us, but you know what? Just some things to consider. Number 1, meeting our deadlines, whatever they are. But there are times where we or maybe not meet our deadlines because we have things going on. Another thing I will just want us to keep in mind, each one of us on this call today, each person in our organization, everyone's going through something. Everyone is. Everyone got something outside of our work that has captured our attention. It could be health, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be significant others. If you have children, I got 2 babies, it could be your babies, but we're all going through something. We got to be mindful of our team members, that they're not going to show up every day happy and jipper. Like, there's some days where we're just going through it. And the best thing we can do is be empathetic and show a level of compassion for them, not because of the position they hold, but because of the humanity that they hold. I was at this conference in Orlando in 2017. I'll never forget this. And it's called the Work Human Conference. And we're sitting around the table, and these are HR managers, and everyone is talking about what they make their people do. And, you know, I tell them to do this. And I just had a thought, why don't we just start treating employees like human beings? Humans. I know it sounds generic, but it's true. There's no trick to the human experience. We either invest in people or we don't invest in people. It's almost that simple. And as long as I've been doing this, that's what it takes. It takes a consistent investment into other people and making them better. And in turn, they help us become better. So meeting our deadlines is 1. Number 2, be candid, not disrespectful, not to belittle others, but to be candid. Tell people your truth in a way and at a time that would allow your message to resonate. That may be a day after something, that may be 2 weeks, but always giving the person the opportunity to let them know where they stand with you, I think is important. Next, we have to adapt quickly. And this is challenging for people because we have people in our organization say we have done this the same way every time. This is the way we've always done it idea. And there's nothing wrong with that, maybe with some things, but we got to be able to adapt. Our teammate is sick. We got to be able to adapt. We need a new deadline. We got to be able to adapt. Okay. Next, we have to appreciate other people's work style. Okay. Not everyone works like us, and that is sometimes very frustrating. And last but not least, we got to avoid the office politics. I know this is challenging. This is one thing right here will make you lose sleep at night. But this is what we have to try to avoid to be a good team member so we can serve our respective communities or our respective organization or institution at the highest level. Okay. All right. Some skills, something to consider. I just got a couple. Number one, to be a good team player, we got to be reliable. We got to be able to communicate constructively. And here's the thing. I don't mean offer constructive criticism because I don't like the term. Personally, giving people feedback is always necessary. We got to be willing to listen to others. And I said willing because we're not always willing to listen to certain people. We got to be active participants. We got to be willing to be open and share with other people our thoughts. But again, I'm not talking about in a belittling way. And also keep this in mind, you can't tell everyone everything in life, let alone in our respective organizations. So it's something to be mindful of. The next, really quick, we got to be able to be cooperative. Again, keep in mind, this is why I talked about knowing our strengths, okay? We got to be flexible. Someone mentioned that. We got to be flexible. We have to be committed to our respective team as long as we're in the environment. But I also think we have to be committed to ourselves to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so we can be committed the next day. That is something where I think people miss. We think being a good team player is neglecting ourself. I don't see it that way personally. Being a good team player saying at 5 o'clock, I have to go home and be with my family if need be. Also being a good team player saying, nope, I can stay till 9 o'clock because I need to get this done. You have to figure out which way to go. All right. And obviously we talked about problem solving, respective, and supportive. These are also some different skills. Now, what is the ultimate, whether it's skill, attitude, or what should we know? To be the ultimate team player is to constantly put drops in people's trust bucket. Trust is the one thing that can change everything. I can't tell you how important trust is. And let me just give you a brief example. We're almost out of time, but trust is so important that if we don't trust a certain restaurant, we don't eat there. Trust is so important that if we don't trust a certain brand, we don't buy it. Trust is so important that if we don't trust a certain person, we don't talk to him or her. We don't collaborate. Instead, we compete. Trust is the glue that keeps the bricks together within the team. And every single day, what I want you to keep in mind, we either making withdrawals or making deposits in people's trust buckets, and we don't even know it. Everyone needs something different. That's why connecting with others is so critical and so vital. Let me show you this leadership pyramid. So often when we think of leadership, we instantly think title, like what's your title? Director, president, CEO, whatever it may be. But again, I don't look at leadership as what titles, because each one of us in our organization, we have what's called social leaders. They don't know they're the social leader, but you do. Because when you have a question or issue, it may not be your direct supervisor. It's that person. You go to them. I mean, hell, they may even come to you. But social leaders. And why are they the social leader? Well, because number one, they have influence with you, not over you, but with you. Well, if they have influence, what do they have more importantly than that? They have your trust. So again, when I say trust is the one thing that can change everything, it is so true. If you don't develop trust with people, you don't have good relationships. If you don't have good relationships, I promise you, you won't have good collaboration. If you don't have good collaboration, I promise you, you won't have good communication. And then we're going to have a performance issue. So on and so on and so on. But when I talked about connecting the dots, trust is the one little, if I had a line to link everything, trust would be that link to linking it all. To the teamwork, the communication, the respecting of diversity, employee engagement, emotional intelligence, customer service. It's all about trust. And for every time I go and speak to an organization, we talk about, oh, this person is not communicating with this person is in their silo. And so all these, things that are happening in our workplace, it's because it's a lack of trust. It's a lack of trust, not communication. It's trust. And trust is one of those things, as we all know, you can build it up for 10 years and in 10 minutes, it can be gone away. It's so fragile, but so important. So really quick, I'm telling you this because my goal is that if I can at least make you aware of some of these things, we can see some of the issues in our respective workplace. We can be a better teammate by addressing some of them. In the book, The Speed of Trust by Stephen M.R. Covey, the son's author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, said that when you work in a low trusting environment, it takes longer to accomplish certain tasks and the financial cost is increased. And I don't disagree with that. But unfortunately, I've worked in low trusting environments where it didn't cost more money to do it, but there was a cost. And there was a social and emotional cost. Like the cost of not wanting to go to work on Monday after Sunday. Like walking into your respective workplace, feeling like you're on an island, but you see a sea of people. That's a cost. The cost of feeling like you have to arrive early and stay after late. That's taxing. That's a cost. The cost of Fridays feeling like holidays and Sundays feeling like funerals because you got to show up on Monday morning is a cost. It's taxing. So knowing that we work in a low trusting environment or that we have worked in low trusting environments, my question would be is how do we make that better? Because that's what this is about. How do we make it better? And that's what the last activity I want us to consider. So the author says he calls this the trust dividend, that when we work in high trusting environments, it doesn't take us as long to do work, assignments, and things of that nature. And actually the cost goes down, meaning that, yeah, it takes us less money because it takes us less time. But what about the social and emotional cost? It's not as taxing. It's not as taxing on us, right? We don't mind staying a little bit later, working on the weekends a little bit. We're not in a rush to leave because we work with people that we trust. How many of us have ever worked in an organization? You didn't get paid what you should have got paid, but the people were so freaking great that you're like, I'll stay. I've been there. I'm here. Okay. So my point is working in a high trusting environment, even if it's just a core group of people, makes all the difference in the world. So what I want us to do is, what about 3 ways that we can help? And I want you to be specific to yourself, not in the general scope, like, well, someone could do. No. I want to know what could you do to increase the trust in your respective environment. Okay. I'm gonna give you about 1.5 minutes to consider that, and then we are done, good people. All right, my peeps. Thank you, Terry. Okay. I would love to know, what could you do? What could you do to increase the trust in your respective workplace? And I'm going to tell you the reason why I asked you this is because my first rule of leadership is ownership. And we have all been a part of low trusting environments. And I will tell you, we've all contributed in some form, some fashion. What do you got? One thing you can do. Because I got like 40 seconds. Follow through. Thank you, Jacqueline. Yes, you can follow through. Yes. Do what you say.
Be transparent.
Be transparent. Be authentic. I would add to that. Mm-hmm. Tell your truth at the right appropriate time when you're not going to yell at someone. Okay.
Being honest is probably, for me, number 1.
Yeah. Being honest. Good. Being honest. Good. Reaching out to help quicker. Thank you. Absolutely. Especially if you see someone struggling. Now, as I depart, we don't know what other people need. We don't know, but I'll tell you this, we will never know if we don't communicate with them. So as you go out through your journey, please just understand every single interaction that you have with someone the question I would pose to you is, when they leave the interaction from me, what are they left with? Are they encouraged? Or are they discouraged? Some of that is our ownership, and whatever we can own, we can control. On that note, my friends, I am complete for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I truly, truly appreciate it, and I appreciate the engagement.
Well, thank you to Dr. Ron Lewis for being with us this semester, for these past couple of months. Man, we appreciate you so much. We appreciate your knowledge, and we appreciate, you guiding us on this journey. So for those of you who are just joining us new, for those of you who would like to review any of the 3 previous sessions presented by Dr. Ron, those can be viewed by on our Titan YouTube channel, which is link.ivytech.edu/TitanTube. You can also view the news post that has them all listed in the previous event listings at link.ivytech.edu/FW-leads. You'll find more information there about how you can watch the videos, complete some of the extra homework, and receive a certification and or scholarship if you're a student. So check that information out. Once again, kudos to Dr. Ron. Thank you very much for being here. We know we will see you again, so we just look forward to the next time. All right. Once again, thank you everybody for being here.